Let's rejuvenate our motivation. And instead of thinking, what can I get out of this? How can I benefit? And just leaving our motivation as a very narrow one. Let's think by learning this morning, by sharing this morning, may I grow, may my wisdom and compassion grow. And as they grow, may I make a greater and greater contribution to society and to the well-being of living beings. So that what we're doing is placed very firmly in the context of service and compassion. If you want to fix it and put something else on it so it sounds more like a gong, please do. It's trying. It's like us when we meditate. It's trying, but it's kind of falling short. Okay. So yesterday we talked about 4 of the 5 precepts. And remember, these are guidelines about how to live together harmoniously with other people. Yeah? So they're not only guidelines for us, for our own ethical conduct, but they're guidelines on how they affect how we relate to other people. And that's important. Sometimes we look at our behavior or we look at our role in relationship to society and we say, but I'm just one person, what can I do? Yeah, I can't do much. I have lots of advice and I want everybody to change and follow it, but what can I actually do as one person? So in some ways we say, well, okay, I'm not very important, I can't do much. But in another way, everything every individual does is actually quite important. Because if you take the first precept to abandon killing, let's say that everybody in the world, just as an individual, on one day decided today there's no war, there's no fighting, we're not going to kill. Okay? One day. What would the newspapers write about? Yeah? Wouldn't that be a total shock to the world? Like one day and nobody is harming another person physically, causing their death. It's powerful, isn't it? And as one individual, we contribute to that. So when we take precepts, it's also our contribution to world peace. Because you can see that one person who doesn't keep the precepts, their behavior can influence the whole world. Okay? Hitler didn't keep the precepts. Mao Zedong, Stalin, Putin, Imagine if one of them had just said, maybe they would have still had their crazy ideas, but they said, I'm not going to kill. Then what? What would World War II be without Hitler? Well, we could say, well, there were other people who would kill, but if you have a leader who stops and tells all the followers why they're stopping, it has an effect. So, what one person does can either bring a lot of harm or a lot of good. So in that way, we need to beware of our own ethical conduct as an individual, because it can bring a lot of peace, or it could bring a lot of damage. Yeah? Even though we're just one person. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Buddha was just one person. Yeah? Many of the great figures were just one person. Yeah? And yet what they did in society lasts for years and is an example for so many other people. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, yeah, just my contribution to world peace is I'm not killing. Okay, and what that means is that everybody who comes in contact with me can feel safe. Now, we talk a lot about safety these days, yeah? But if we abandon killing, everybody who is with us can relax. They don't have to worry about their life, about physical trauma or whatever. Yeah? And that's a very powerful gift to other people. Because if you're around somebody who you don't trust physically, who you think might harm you physically or even kill you, I mean, it has a strong effect, even though the person hasn't done anything. Yeah, but if we can convey through having the precept and through developing compassion, that people can be safe with us, it's very powerful. Yeah. And similar with the second precept, not to steal, or actually, it's as it's written, not to take anything that hasn't been freely given to us. If we follow that, then everybody who is around us knows that their stuff is completely safe. Yeah? You could leave your diamond ring, I don't know who has a diamond ring, but your expensive whatever it is, yeah, in this room and go out of the room, and you will know that when you come back, it's still going to be here. Yeah. Or somebody may have said, oh, somebody forgot it and picked it up so that somebody else doesn't do it. And then you have to search the whole Abbey to find the one person who was protecting your stuff. But what I'm getting at is, then you don't have to worry about any of your stuff because, nobody's going to take the stuff that hasn't been freely given to them. I should add a little addendum to to that precept. If you have a very good friend and you know that they would let you borrow their thing for a short period of time, but they're not around for you to ask if you can borrow it, it's usually okay to borrow it and just leave them a note. Okay, that's not stealing. But if you borrow something that isn't possessed by a good friend, but by some other person, and you say, oh, well, I'll only take it for a few minutes and give it back, and of course you get involved and you forget, then that is definitely taking what hasn't been freely given, And there's all sorts of other things. I mentioned about taxes and fees yesterday, but borrowing library books and not returning them, borrowing money from friends or family, not giving it back, yeah, all these kinds of things fall under the category of taking what's not freely given. Yeah, somebody may have loaned us to something, that's fine, yeah, but we promised to pay it back and we didn't. So we kept it for ourselves. It wasn't freely given for us to keep. Okay, so this makes us very aware of how we handle the things in our environment. Because sometimes we're really spaced out. Yeah? Are you aware when you go to an office or some sort, where you have to go to the doctors or the dentist and you have to check in and then you have to sign these different forms? Yeah, they often have pens nearby. Do you take a pen and then put it in your own bag afterwards? just out of habit. Yeah. Oh, yeah, here's a pen, I use it, and then out of habit it goes in my bag. Okay? So, that is something that could easily happen. When you have this precept, it makes you very aware of, even when you're in the dentist office, to be careful about what belongs to you and what doesn't. Yeah. So it's not a taking the pen in the dentist office isn't a heavy negative karma. Yeah. But other things we could just, easily take. Yeah. Yeah. And this is something that we become aware of when we're kids. I think part of the terrible twos is not just no, but it's give me. Yeah, give me. I want. Yeah, and you see babies are like, yeah, we tolerate it with babies. They don't know, but when we're big babies, then, yeah. Okay, then the third one, to avoid unwise and unkind sexual behavior. So if we keep that one, then everybody around us knows that we're not going to hit on them. And they know that they don't have to put up some kind of, the whole flirting kind of, what do they think of me and how do I look and what do I think of them and how am I going to walk so that they'll look at me and you just know, okay, don't have to get involved in any of that stuff. I can just be a human being and no other human beings without these kind of trips. And that's really refreshing. Yeah? And if you're in a relationship, you know that you will protect your spouse, and if your spouse is keeping the precept, then you know that is reciprocal. Yeah, and that really is very important, I think, for family harmony. As a nun, you may think nuns don't know anything, we're just in our little cloister and we don't know anything about the world. Well, aside from not having been born a nun and grown up in the 60s and 70s, aside from that, people tell me a lot of things. I hear a lot of stories. And it's quite remarkable. People will come and they'll say, when I was a kid, I knew it's usually the father, sometimes the mother, but I knew my dad was having an affair, for years when I was a kid. And, like I said, sometimes it's the mother having an affair, but the children are quite aware of it. Yeah? The parents usually think, well, I'm hiding it. Yeah. I don't want this to adversely affect the family or adversely affect my kids. So they think they're hiding it. But kids are really smart. Yeah. And they know what's going on. And then that gives a strange feeling to the children because, your parents are together, but how much are they together? And then the cover-ups, oh, well, I was out at the golf course or I was at the bowling alley and, they were with some other person. And the kids know. So they're seeing their parents act, lie a lot. And what effect does that have on kids? And they see their parents being double-faced to their spouse. And then that sets kind of an example for the kids, too. So, when I lead retreats and courses with adults, I try and make them aware of that. Because sometimes really adults are totally out to lunch and think, I just keep it hidden, nobody else will know. And other people do know. And it's also a big cause for the family, the parents to divorce as well, which is why I think it's quite good to get to know people very well in many different circumstances before you get married. Yeah? Because, even here at the Abbey, we live with people. They have the year of anagarika training, 2 years as a novice before they fully ordain. And we're living with them 24/7. So we think we get to know them very well. And then it's amazing. After 3-4 years, something, some big problem swells in them, or some old habit comes, and we're going, wow, we never expected this. Yeah, we thought we really knew this person. And I think that happens a lot in long-term relationships, especially because at the beginning you're on best behavior and they're on best behavior. Yeah. But after the honeymoon's over, then it's like, well, that person is there. We're so close that they're just like part of me, which means that I don't need to say please or thank you or be polite. They're family. Yeah. And actually, families should be the people we treat the best. But often we say, well, they're just part of me, and, so I don't need to do anything special. And, I just do what I want to do, and they live with it. And, maybe when you're a kid, you can get away with that for a few years because you're so cute. But when you get over the cute phase, then, the rest of the family is going to start to comment on it. And similarly, when you get in a relationship, especially at the beginning, it's just like the love songs and the movies, and then finally you think, and this is going to last forever. Yeah, who do you know where that has lasted forever? Yeah? Do you think Prince William and Kate Middleton, are just head over heels with each other, just like at the beginning, No fights. Yeah, no disagreements. Well, you look superficially at everything. They're so tidy. Yeah, the Brits are really tidy people. Not like us Americans, we're kind of slobby. Yeah, but, yeah. And then we think, oh, they have this perfect life, da-da-da-da-da. They get have maids and butlers, and everybody does everything what they want, and then all the photos look gorgeous. Yeah, they look gorgeous in all the photos, and they stand on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. I can't imagine living that kind of life, where your whole life is trying to present an image to other people. Yeah? Can you imagine you're on that balcony waving, and it's like, Prince William, you were such a jerk this morning. Shut up. We put our hands. Yeah. Anyway. Okay. So it's very important, I think, to get to know somebody over a period of time in many different situations. Yeah, because people act different in different situations. And then also to know that people change. Yeah. Okay, so that's the third one. Then the fourth one, lying. Okay, so these things going on, the January 6th investigation is one of the main things that's coming out of that is deception and lying. And just the force of, we think, like I told you, one of the reasons I took precepts is I realized I needed to get my ethical life in order, because I thought my lying was okay, but other people's lying was terrible. Yeah, and you see, when you have people who have political power or any kind of power in the country, when they lie, it affects a lot of people. Yeah, and so the lying that went behind that, is behind the election, stolen election thing. And in my opinion, what Fox News is doing right now, constant twisting of facts. I mean, it's damaging and it's harmful, not just to the individual players, but to the whole country. Because now, as I mentioned yesterday, people really don't know who to believe or what to believe. Yeah, because with the internet and so on, you have, everybody can write their own thing and have accumulate a group of followers. And you see how powerful our speech is, and especially with lying, the harm it does to the people who think we're telling the truth. And especially what we're seeing too in the January 6th investigation. And I think that investigation it doesn't mean just what happened on January 6th. What they're investigating is everything from even before the election through January 6th and even after that. The whole, because January 6th wasn't an isolated thing that came out of nowhere. It was preceded by months of the former president saying that the election is rigged. Even before the election, remember, he was saying it's rigged? So he's setting everybody up for a rigged election. Of course, if he had won fair and square, he would have not said peep about being rigged after the election. But it primed other people so that when he lost, then he could just continue with that story. Yeah, and the fraudulent votes and dead people voting and that whole scene that went on, that was thrown out of the courts, and what's coming out is many of the people who played along with Trump's craziness knew that Biden had won the election fair and square. Yeah? But out of attachment to political power and fame and possessions and so on, then they began to speak like him. They lied. They adopted the big lie, yeah, and lied about the election, lied to the American people, even after, on January 6th, after the riot, when they finally cleared the building and the Congress got together to certify the votes, yeah, even then, so many of the Republican Congress people, when the vice president asked, does anybody have qualms with these electors, so many of them, even after the riot, after the insurrection, they raised their hand, yes, we don't think the votes in Pennsylvania are accurate. We don't think those are the real electors. That's what they said. They knew that wasn't true. Yeah. So you can see the harm that comes when, people with certain status in society act that way. Yeah? And you can see that when people tell the truth, especially if they're in a powerful position, it really has a strong effect too. Yeah? And so that whole idea of telling truth to power, yeah, you're not belligerent, you're not angry, you don't say nasty things and accuse people of stuff. You just tell the truth. That's it. Okay? And that's very powerful. When it devolves into name calling, which is a lot of our politics nowadays, if you ask certain people for, what is your party platform, or, what policies will you advocate if you are elected, many of them, what is Marjorie Taylor Greene planning to do if she's elected? Well, what did she do the last 2 years? Did she do anything that really helped people in the country? Yeah. So no, she's a real case. Yeah. And, that whole Freedom Caucus in the House of people pretending to be legislatures, but not really having any policy. Actually, at the 2020 Republican convention for nominating, they were supposed to be writing the Republican platform with, what they want as a group, what the party stands for. And they couldn't write a platform. It became what the president wants. That literally was their platform when people went to look at it. So you see, one person lies, then other people, out of their own selfish minds, adopt that lie so that they could progress. They can get something out of themselves, so they adopt the lie. That lie spreads to more and more people. So you have a huge wing of people in the country who believe those lies are true. And you look at QAnon, and people who believe the QAnon stuff. And it's amazing how they believe, and then they're deceived. Yeah? And what do you do when you're deceived like that? Well, some people just say, forget the whole thing. And other people say, I'm still with the movement. It's going to happen this way, one way or another. I remember on Inauguration Day, they were, because the QAnon theory was on Inauguration Day, Trump was going to be re-inaugurated. It wasn't Biden. He didn't win the election. It was somehow Trump was going to go through the ceremony. So I was watching this interview online of one QAnon person, and it is like a half an hour before the inauguration is going to start, and the interviewer says, you're QAnon, do you believe in QAnon? Yes, I follow that. And so you believe that Trump will be inaugurated again today? Yes, I do. And the reporter says, well, the ceremony is going to start in half an hour. How do you see that happening? And this was a man, he must have been in his 50s. I mean, it wasn't some kid who high on whatever. And he said, I have faith. It'll work out. Trump will be inaugurated today. Q prophesized it. Yeah. Of course, Trump wasn't inaugurated. So I don't know what happened to him. Some people, yeah, what you see is that, they just throw it out and say, oh, it's lied, it's a sham, forget it. Okay. So they maybe come to their senses. But you will see very often when there is a public figure who misbehaves and is called out about it, many people will stand behind that public figure and support them, even though they probably have a suspicion that what the public figure is saying is phony baloney. But because of their own attachment to that institution or their attachment to that person or attachment to their own status, which is linked with that person, then they adopt the lie too. Yeah. And so you may remember after January 6th, Kevin McCarthy at first said, we've got to stop Trump. Yeah. And he's responsible for what happened. And then a couple of weeks later, there he is, smiling photo with their arms around each other. And and McCarthy is talking a totally different story. And it's easy to see why he's doing that, because he wants to be the next Speaker of the House. And he feels in order to do that, he has to get Trump's stamp of approval. Okay? So through these lies, what I'm getting at is through lying yourself or going along with other people's lies, you actually wind up losing your own integrity. Yeah, because you start doing things that you wouldn't normally do, and you start saying things you wouldn't normally say, or even convincing yourself of things that you know are false. But you convince yourself because you we were talking in the first day, your own little bubble with everybody who agrees with you. So these people have their own bubble too. And they're all looking for power and status, and say, we all support the president, and it continues. What's coming out now, very interestingly, is that a lot of Trump's aides and even his daughter knew that Biden had won the election fair and square and believed that. Yeah. What did they do? They bought into the great lie and continued to deceive the American public. And that is, not just deception now, but it really is destroying democracy. Yeah. Okay, so just to make clear, I am not talking politics. I am talking ethical conduct here. Okay, the reason I'm talking about those people is because we all have heard of them, we know the situation, yeah? And so if I give that as an example, you can relate to it. If I start telling you about, the princess of Ghana and what happened in her court, you're not going to relate to that. Yeah? But, any of you who study history, what went on with kings and queens and everything, and you don't know who to trust, and they're all conniving against each other. Yeah, and then what happens even in democracy? I mean, the Vietnam War. By the way, there's an excellent, excellent series by, I forget his name. It was on PBS, and it was called The Vietnam War. I think it had 10 or 11 things to it. Watch it. It's really very well done. And what came through in that is how much the government lied to us about the Vietnam War. Yeah. And there's a lot of talk now about Watergate. So I lived through these things, they affected me. But Watergate and all the lying that went on there. Yeah. And just, if you really think about it, my lies they're just little, it's okay, it doesn't matter. You don't know. The force of one, quote, quote, little lie can really spread. Yeah? And it brings out the worst in us, And it brings out the worst in other people too, especially people who then start to lie because they're on our side and they want to help us cover up. Okay, so you see this a lot in the Me Too movement. Somebody gets called out and then all the buddies say, oh, no, he's perfectly okay. And he says, oh, I didn't do anything. Yeah. But, okay, so again, just to come back to the point that what we do matters. So in one way, as one person, when we talk about ourselves in terms of our selfish mind, in that respect, we are not important. My selfish mind getting what it wants, considering everything else that's going on in this universe, really I'm not the center of it. I have to really abdicate that position that I thought I was in for so long, and, abdicate the throne of my own self-importance and see, I'm one among over 7 billion, so why do I make such a big deal about I, me, my, and mine, So in that way, we're quite unimportant. In terms of our behavior and how we act towards other people, our actions make a lot of difference, okay? And we are quite important in that way. Also, when we talk about our Buddha nature, our potential to become fully awakened, we are important in that way. We have that potential, we have that capacity. It's important to recognize that we have it and to have that self-confidence. Okay. That doesn't mean we are the only sentient being who has Buddha nature. And so we're special. Yeah. Oh, I got Buddha nature. Did you get it? No. Oh, So it's not like that. Yeah. But to see our own potential and know that if we, live according to our values and our commitments, that it can have a good effect on ourselves and on the people around us. Then we see, yes, what I do is important. Yeah. I mean, Putin is, I'm going to say, Tsar of Russia, which is actually what he is trying to be. And he's acting like a Tsar. But look how one person's actions are affecting millions of people. How things are interdependent. The war starts this, which leads to that, which leads to that, and nothing good comes out of it. Okay, so that's the 4th precept. Yeah, 5th precept. Now this one I know I'm going to get pushback on. Okay, the 3rd and the 5th precept, Westerners go bonkers over. Okay, so we got through the sex one. We all made it through that precept, huh? You didn't freak out. You didn't, Okay, the 5th one is not taking intoxicants. Oh, I can see already. So what constitutes intoxicants? Alcohol, very clearly alcohol. Recreational drugs that make you intoxicated. Abuse of prescription drugs. This is what the opioid epidemic is based on. People getting prescriptions for pain, and then the doctors abusing that, the pharmaceutical people lying and saying it's not that addictive, and then, of course, the people who are addicted lying to get prescriptions and get the thing. See, it's interesting, isn't it? Whenever you study any of these behaviors, so much of it links back to lying. Yeah. So yeah, so abuse of legal drugs, yeah, that are prescribed to you. Okay, then we get questions like, well, does that mean that I can't cook with red wine when it's in the recipe? Okay, so that's, I know, an incredibly important question. Yeah, and when Venerable Sultram makes her carrot cake, you're going to ask her if she put some red wine in it or not. No, she didn't. But but if something cooks out, it's okay because you're not going to get intoxicated from it. So technically, it's okay. Personally, I wonder if the taste of the wine triggers in you a memory of when you've had wine which did have alcohol in it. And that could be detrimental, but that's something each person has to check for themselves. What about tincture, medicine that is in tincture with alcohol, like homeopathic medicine? What you do there, the alcohol is to preserve the herbs and everything, is you just put it in some boiling water for, a few seconds. The alcohol evaporates, then you take the medicine, okay? So that's okay. So I did mention recreational drugs, recreational alcohol, recreational whatever else you take. Yeah, and that changes throughout the generations. But there's some happening now that were very popular back with the dinosaurs too. So, yeah, because that's so much related to our social life. And it's so related to how we connect with people, So people meet, they want to get to know each other. What do? You go to the bar. That's where you hang out, okay? Or you get together and smoke whatever, or pop whatever, yeah? But you do it with your friends, and it's recreational, and it's fun, and it's a bonding experience. And it also makes you maybe not see things quite as clearly as they need to be seen. So I've had experience with drugs and alcohol one time, okay? My parents were not big drinkers, and actually I thought alcohol smelled bad, so I wasn't really attracted to it. But I decided one time I was going to get drunk because I wanted to see what it was like. Because my friends were getting drunk, and I had never gotten drunk, so let's do it and see what it's like. So I got drunk. That was enough to make me never take alcohol again. It was like awful, totally awful. And I couldn't believe, people drink because it loosens them, it relaxes them. It's like, it made me, yeah. So nobody had to tell me, don't drink alcohol. I like I said, one time was enough. Yeah. Taking other drugs and so on, I could see during some times having very good discussions with other people that I really learned a lot from. And we talked, we'd smoke a joint and then talk and have a very open discussion, and that was very beneficial. What I learned from that was beneficial. Other kinds of things. I remember one trip, just really seeing that when I'm not happy with myself, I can't be happy with anybody else either. When I don't like myself, then I don't like other people. That was a useful thing to learn. Okay. Now the question is, do I need to take drugs to learn those things? That's the question, and I don't think so. Okay, so many people now ayahuasca is the latest thing that people are taking. And to tell you the truth, I was totally shocked when Spirit Rock, which is supposed to be a Buddhist center where they were having ayahuasca retreats there, a guided ayahuasca retreat. And it's like, do you guys keep the 5 precepts or not? It was very puzzling to me that they would do that. More than puzzling, I'm being polite. It was shocking. I was totally shocked. Yeah. I should actually know better and stop being shocked at what people do, but sometimes I'm shocked. So, so that really thing, yes, you can have good experiences and learn things that you might not have otherwise, but is it necessary to take the drug in order to do that? And I don't think so. When I hear people who say, oh, but it's so helpful to understanding emptiness and through the death meditation, and it's really helpful for my Dharma practice, then I usually say, and remember, this is coming from somebody who used drugs. It's not coming from some person who, never tried anything. When they say that, I say, well, if it were really so good for helping you grow spiritually, then the Buddha would have given ayahuasca and other things to his disciples. Yeah? The Buddha would have taken all these kinds of things and encouraged his disciples to do it if he thought that these things were really helpful on the path to awakening. But we find no record of the Buddha taking intoxicants or giving these things to his disciples. There's no record of that at all. Okay? So, I think we need to think about that. If in your mind you're saying, oh, but there's so much benefit, yeah. Okay, now I'm going to say something else, because I know that there's also some research on using that to treat people who are psychotic or who have mental disease, some kind of mental illness. Used in that context, yeah, for people with a medical diagnosis, under the guidance of somebody who's with them and is conducting a therapy session at the same time as they have taken the drug and are under the influence. To me, that's a totally different thing than recreational, where you sit down and do it with your friends. Yeah? And so I think if that can help people who have different mental illness, and it's done in a medical setting with a therapist, with somebody who knows what they're doing, with people who are properly prepared, and it helps people recover, then great. Yeah. But like I said, that's a lot different than doing it in other circumstances. Okay, now you can all raise your hands and say, yes, but. Okay. Yes, but.
This isn't really a yes, but so to preface, I totally agree. I've tried shrooms once, and my big takeaway was like, oh, I don't need to do that. That was like, I ended the whole thing. I was like, I don't need that. I was like, a lot of the takeaways once was good.
Mm-hmm.
But I do notice that there do seem to be like overlaps between kind of what I experience and what I've read other people have experienced in Buddhism, and sort of like the Buddhist philosophy. And it does seem, that like a lot of people have come to Buddhism after trying kind of like a recreational psychedelic like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see why they're not necessary, especially because you forget most of what you learned, and it's in a recreational setting, it can be too overwhelming for a lot of people. But I guess I was just wondering if there's any like kind of explanation in Buddhism for why there's sort of like an overlap there, or why there's like some people seem to like kind of like, oh, like off of just these random plants.
Yeah, I've never seen any explanation in the sutras from the Buddha or any of the lineage masters about this. we have to ask what really is a spiritual experience. Yeah? And when you read about other people's spiritual experiences, are they real spiritual experiences? Because if you've taken drugs, you know you can invent a spiritual experience. Yeah? But you have, you take some wowie-kazowie, you have some wowie-kazowie experience, and like the colors are bright and they're mixing, and you see faces and different things and different shapes, and you can weave a whole narrative story about all the things, the pattern of the flowers, and that's talking about, Mary, Queen of Scots, and you remember being Mary, well, no, you don't remember being Mary, Queen of Scots' servant, okay? You remember being Cleopatra, but let me tell you, nobody remembers being Cleopatra's servant. Yeah? All these people who say, I remember my past life. I haven't read one where they say I was Cleopatra's servant, but I've read a lot where they say they were Cleopatra. Okay? So we have to really think, just because somebody writes something, just because we even experience it, is it a genuine spiritual experience? And second point, if it is a genuine spiritual experience, how do we incorporate that into our practice? Okay, what meaning does it have? So I'm going to tell you some stories. So there was one Lama who was meditating up above Dharamsala. They have huts, and there are meditators up there. And apparently he had a vision of Tara, one of the Buddhas. We don't have Tara in this room, but she's green. Okay. Look for the green one, and you've got her. Okay, so he had a vision of Tara. So one Westerner went up to ask him about it, like, what did you see and what happened with Tara and this stuff, and what do you make of it, and, was it really Tara? And he said, well, I saw Tara, but I don't really know if it was Tara or not. And he was totally blasé about it. Yeah. What do we do? Look, I saw Tara. I saw the Buddha. She appeared to me. Oh, I must be really close to awakening. There she is, bright green color. The LSD is just fantastic. It helps me see Tara. Okay? So, this meditator's experience was, this is a nice experience, and I have to keep practicing. Yeah. And I don't know if it really was Tara or not, and in one way it doesn't matter. What matters is if I am inspired to deepen my practice having had that experience. So if it inspires me to really cultivate compassion more, if it inspires me to meditate on the nature of reality, that's good. Yeah. If it inspires me to run around town and I'm going to become the chai shop guru, yeah. Listen, if you've been to Asia, there are many chai shop gurus. Yeah, they've been to one Dharma course and then they become the guru of the chai shop and sit around and tell everybody about all their wild experiences in meditation. Okay, so that's one story. Another story, I lived in Hong Kong for a while. I was teaching there, and I was invited to give a talk at the American School. This is also, by the way, where my comment about Americans came from, because whenever I went to like the Canadian schools or British schools, the children are so well behaved, you know. You go to an American school and abroad, and so these are the kids of rich people, and the kids, you know, they're sitting in the corridor with the legs stretched out. You're trying to walk in the corridor. They don't move their legs. They're talking, they're messing around. Yeah. And you're just trying to walk on the corridor. So, okay. And by the way, you know, if you travel, you do realize that the stereotype that Americans are very loud, it's true. It's true, you know. Every country you go to, you can, you know, if the Americans are talking to their friend in the airline lobby or any place, "Hi, John, how are you doing?" And John's sitting right next to yeah, or on the telephone. So anyway, that's just an aside comment about maybe making us think so we become more considerate of other people when we're in public places. Maybe. Okay, so I was at this school, and one little kid, these were in the days of Uri Geller. If you remember him, he was an Israeli who had some kind of psychic power where if there were a spoon, like in another room, he could bend that spoon without touching it. Some kind of power he had to do that. So there's one little kid in the audience. You know, he must have been, I don't know, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. And he raises his hand and he said, with big eyes, he said, "Can you bend spoons?" Yeah, because I was introduced as a Buddhist. "Can you bend spoons?" And you could tell he really wanted me to say yes. Yeah. And I said, "Well, to tell you the truth, no, I can't bend spoons. And even if I could, I don't think it would bring more happiness to the world. I think that it would just ruin somebody else's spoon." Yeah. So, no, I can't do it, and I don't really see any purpose to it. Yeah, it's true. You know, you ruin somebody else's spoon, then they go to eat their porridge, and it's like that. Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa were teaching us, and most of us who came were, you know, hippie travelers. That was the in thing that you did. So we kind of all came up from Freak Street at various stages of intoxication, or maybe even being clear-minded, yeah. And so Lama Yeshe would teach. He was a really spectacular teacher. He could tune into people so well. Anyway, somebody would inevitably raise their hand and say, "Lama, what do you think about smoking dope and meditating? Yeah? Wouldn't it make your visualization so clear?" Yeah, and they were really, you know, like, "Lama, if you want to try it, we'll give you some." Yeah, we can all, you know, all share some dope together, and then you'll see what a great visualization you have in your meditation. And Lama kind of looked at us and he said, "You're already hallucinating, dear. You don't need to take anything." That was very profound in a way that most of us did not understand at that moment, okay? Because when you start to study the nature of reality and ask yourself how things really exist, you begin to see that how things appear and how they actually exist are very far apart. and that our ordinary perception is in some way like a hallucination. We're seeing things as existing in a way they don't. So when he said, "You're already hallucinating, dear, you don't need to take any drugs," what he was saying is, your ignorant mind is keeping you in samsara, hallucinating a type of existence that isn't real. And on top of that, you want to get intoxicated? You're already not seeing reality. Why do you want to, up it a notch? Okay? So it took us a while to really understand what he was saying. But, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Next question. Yes, but yeah, I knew you would ask something.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But first, could you repeat that quote from yesterday?
Huh?
Do you mind repeating that quote from
Yeah, he just said, yeah, you're already hallucinating, dear. He called everybody dear. So, you're already hallucinating, dear. You don't need to take anything. Really, Lama?
Okay. This is a topic I'm super interested in, and I've been exploring, when Dharma teachers are relating to it the way that you're talking about, it totally makes sense to me, like the way that things can get really confused and egoic and whatever with recreational drug use. And so something I've been exploring is the way that psychedelics came into our country, which was like totally dissociated from any kind of cultural or spiritual container. Like people were doing mushrooms at concerts and then LSD and all these things. Then there's a whole lineage of mystical traditions that use plant medicines in ceremony. With, these masters that have been working with these plants since they were children, and they're mystics in their own right. And that seems to be really different and seems to kind of some of the problematic insights or conclusions that people come to in the West when they're dropping acid at a concert or whatever it is, seem to be kind of taken care of when there's a sacred container, when these are done in ceremony with teachers and the community. And so I'm just curious if you have any experience with that, like working within ceremony with teachers who work with these plants, or if that's like many of the people you've spoken to? Or mostly, okay.
No. I've heard of people having bad experiences, and I've talked to people who tell me they have good experiences, but I've never done it, and I've never talked to any of these healers or whatever you call them myself. Okay. Let me tell you about another thing. Yeah. So in China, they have 4 holy mountains. Actually, there's more, but there's 4 special ones. And one of them is called Putosan, and it is Chenrezi's mountain. Chenrezi, or Kuan Yin Avalokiteshvara, is the Buddha of compassion. So that's one manifestation of Chenrezi. And above the altar, the other stained glass is another manifestation of Chenrezi. And the statue out here is the Chinese one of Chenrezi. The one downstairs also is, so appears in many different forms. So I was at Putosan, Chenrezi's island, and we went to one cave where it's, people say that Kuan Yin, that's the Chinese name for Chenrezi, that Kuan Yin would often be visible, that many people who had gone to that cave would see Kuan Yin. So I went out with some friends, and there were 2 other people, Chinese ladies who I didn't know, who were in the cave at the same time that we were. And they were looking at the spot where they say Kuan Yin appears, and they were saying, look, there's Kuan Yin, and they're talking about seeing Kuan Yin. And, oh yeah, she's there, she's so peaceful, she's smiling. Oh, it's really wonderful. I'm seeing nothing, okay? I'm seeing, I'm in a cave, nothing. No mystical experiences at all. But they're having, like, wow, look at Kuan Yin. And then after a while, they said, Kuan Yin's probably getting tired. I guess we better leave. And that just, it made me laugh, and at the same time, it was so sweet. But, it was like they really, it was really Kuan Yin, okay? So what they say, the meditation masters, is when you're doing very deep meditation, especially involved with concentration, shamatha meditation, you need to be under the guidance of somebody, because you can have all sorts of experiences, and your teacher, your meditation teacher, will help you decide if those are actual experiences or if your mind's making up things. Okay. I know for myself, my mind can make up lots of stuff. Yeah. Like, I think, you put me in front of some kind of mottled thing, I can see faces, I can see patterns. Yeah. Are there real people there? Are there really symbols of my future in that carpet? No. Are there really faces in that carpet? No. Yeah. But I could say, oh, I see you see how those colors, do you see that face? That person looks angry, that person looks happy. This has a meaning, and it's signaling to me that blah, 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 blah. And I could do that. But it's nothing. I just have a creative mind that can, that can see those things. I love looking at Escher drawings, I can see those kinds. The other kind of ones with just the dots, I can't see anything in those. Yeah, but Escher drawings, I think, are fantastic. Yeah, but yeah, so what actually is a spiritual experience? Yeah. And I'll hold on. People say, well, I went inside, I was meditating on shamatha, and all of a sudden, I just didn't feel my body anymore. Yeah, so I must have entered the first dhyana of shamatha meditation, yeah, because I didn't have a body anymore. Well, I felt when I took drugs that I didn't have a body. Was that a spiritual experience? Gained through wisdom? Gained through proper practice? Yeah. Far out experiences are not so difficult to have. Actual spiritual experiences that come through practicing the meditations as they're taught and really deepening your understanding, those kind, are coming from a very different place than, our far out kind of things. Yeah. So just to be aware of that, for a while, people get all wigged out about dreams too. And there's a certain, during some ceremonies, it's a 2-day ceremony, and the first day, they say, watch your dreams tonight. Yeah. And then the next day, they say, what did you dream? So, I don't know about the Tibetans, but the Westerners, what did I dream? What did I dream? And I'm supposed to dream, and it meant this, and it meant that, and the other thing. And then, at the beginning of the teaching the next day, His Holiness Dalai Lama, one of the lamas was, well, if you dreamt about touching the moon, that's a symbol, or touching the sun, that's a symbol that you're purifying your negative karma. If you, dreamed about talking to the Buddha, it means this and that. And then they say, but actually it's just a dream. They go through this whole thing of explaining different symbolism, and then to help us avoid clinging on to the dream and imputing meaning on it that may have been there or may not have been there, they say it was just a dream. Yeah? And then we feel quite deflated because we've been, telling our friends the whole day what we dreamt, how far out it was. Yeah? So I think if, sometimes dreams can indicate things. That doesn't mean whatever you dream is an indication of something. And I've met people who take their dreams really seriously, very, very seriously. And I kind of wish they would relax a little bit. Yeah, because, when you're not quite sure exactly, is this an actual indication or not? Okay, maybe, hold it lightly, but don't make a big deal about it. And especially the thing to avoid is making it all about me. And I had this far out experience, this far out dream, this far out experience on ayahuasca. What would happen if you took ayahuasca and you didn't tell anybody about it afterwards? Yeah? That would lose part of the thrill of it, because you want to talk about it with your friends, and then I experienced it. What did you experience? This and this, and I had the best experience. You don't say that because that's not polite, but you feel that, and it's just, it's just, wow, hey. Yeah. And then we just make it all about me. I must be close to awakening because I had this experience. So what I said to that little boy who asked me if I could bend spoons? When I said no, it would just ruin somebody's spoon. I said to him, but I think developing a kind heart that cares about other people is more important than bending spoons. And I think it is. Yeah, if we can develop a kind heart towards other people, if we can overcome our very judgmental mind and comparing mind and competitive mind, wanting to be better than other people, and instead really care about them and rejoice at their good fortune, wow, I think that's much more valuable than bending spoons. Yeah. And I think it's much more valuable than seeing the deity, too. Because seeing the deity, okay, I see the deity. If I develop a kind heart, that's an actual internal experience that is transforming my mind. Yeah. So I think I'm the kind of person that goes towards that. Yeah. But you will meet many other